Hello, masterpieces. Welcome back to Front Porch Stories. If you joined us for episode 1, you may remember Kia and Haven. Graduation may have ended their campaign, but it didn't end their story. Today's Front Porch Story explores self-control and what happens when confidence begins to cross the line into pride. So lean back, clear your mind, and let yourself drift to earlier times when the front porch was a classroom and our elders were the teachers. Their stories shaped us, and their lessons still walk beside us. A year after graduation, Kia and Haven found themselves walking through another set of doors. Graduation may have ended the campaign, but it hadn't ended their story. This time, it wasn't a university campus. It was the Unity Bridge Foundation, a respected nonprofit known for connecting families with resources and strengthening communities. Its internship program was highly competitive. Many former interns had gone on to become nonprofit directors, elected officials, and community leaders throughout the state. Both women were excited. Both women were ambitious, and both hoped this opportunity would launch their careers. Kia quickly became a favorite among senior executives. She was polished, confident, charismatic, the kind of person who could make a room laugh within minutes. People noticed when she entered a room, and Kia made sure they did. Haven was respected, but often overlooked. Some executives constantly confused her name with Heaven. Each time she corrected them with grace. "No, sir, it's Haven. No worries, it happens all the time." She worked quietly, asked thoughtful questions, and spent more time listening than talking. One afternoon, an executive met Kia in the hallway.
I have to give you credit. Your work has stood out. You know how to make an impression.
Kia smiled, just enough to look grateful. "Thank you. Leadership has always come naturally to me." Several interns looked up from their work. "I was president of my chapter in college." She glanced across the room toward Haven. "So managing people isn't new territory for me." Haven briefly looked up from her notes, then calmly returned to her work. The executive smiled politely.
"Well, we are always looking for future leaders."
Kia strutted and said under a low whisper, "I plan to do more than lead one day." A faint smirk crossed her face. "One day, people will be asking me for recommendations." A few interns exchanged glances. The executive gave a polite chuckle before walking away. As soon as he was gone, Kia smiled to herself. "I'm sure one day they'll be clearing that office for me." The room grew still. One intern lowered her eyes and whispered, "Mm-mm." Not loud, not messy, just enough to say what everybody else was thinking. Another intern pretended to type. Confidence was one thing, but something in Kia's tone had shifted. It sounded less like ambition and more like she already believed everyone else was beneath her. Haven took a break from her work to encourage a nervous undergraduate intern who was preparing for his first presentation. "You've got this," Haven said encouragingly. The intern sighed.
"I don't know. I feel nervous."
Haven smiled. "Most people are. Just focus on helping people understand your idea." The intern nodded. No announcement, no audience, no recognition, just service.
Sometimes the loudest person in the room appears to be leading. And sometimes the person quietly helping others is leading all along.
At first, most people brushed Kia's behavior aside. She was smart, she was ambitious, and the executives loved her. But little moments have a way of revealing big character flaws. Over the next few weeks, small incidents began piling up. During meetings, Kia often interrupted people before they finished speaking. When a project succeeded, she was quick to mention her contribution. When something went wrong, she was even quicker to mention someone else's mistake. Most people laughed it off at first, but eventually the pattern became harder to ignore. One morning, the internship office buzzed with activity. Phones rang, printers hummed. Interns hurried between meetings. Alyssa, an undergraduate intern, stopped by Kia's desk. "Kia, these are the community outreach packets you requested." Kia glanced up from her computer. Perfect. She picked up her reusable coffee cup and held it out. Now, run downstairs and get this refilled. Large caramel latte with almond milk, extra shot of espresso. Alyssa frowned. I'm sorry? My coffee. Alyssa adjusted the folders in her arms. Actually, I'm an undergraduate intern. We don't get paid for this position. I don't have money for your latte, and I have a meeting soon. Kia slowly leaned back in her chair. Then she smirked. It must be exhausting being broke and incompetent. The office fell silent. Several interns exchanged uncomfortable glances. A few couldn't believe what they had just heard. Without breaking eye contact, Kia reached into her purse, pulled out a prepaid card, and tossed it onto Alyssa's folders. The card slid across the top packet. There. She waved her hand dismissively. Get the coffee, and there better not be a penny more on that card than what I'm ordering. A gasp escaped from somewhere across the room. Alyssa stared at the card and placed the folders beside Kia. For a moment, it looked like she might say something. Instead, she picked it up. Sure. Messages immediately began popping up in the undergrad's group chat. Did she really just say that? Every day it's something. I don't know how she keeps getting away with it. Across the room, Haven quietly reviewed the notes on her desk. She knew the group chat was active. The steady chimes made that clear, but she had no interest in joining the pile-on. A few minutes later, Alyssa returned carrying the latte. She placed it on Kia's desk and set her card beside it. Caramel latte, almond milk, extra shot of espresso, she said with a small smile. Then she quickly turned and walked away. When Alyssa reached the break room, a couple of interns followed her in. One lowered her voice. Girl, be for real. It couldn't be me. Alyssa smiled. Well, I may be a broke intern, but I'm about to show her how incompetent I can be. The interns leaned in. What did you do? Alyssa shrugged. It's not what I did, it's what I didn't do. I didn't get the almond milk. One intern stared at her. Well, that'll show her. Another frowned. Why? Alyssa picked up her water bottle. Why? Because I'm more than competent. She took a sip. If she's running to the bathroom, she won't have time to run her mouth. The room erupted in laughter. Even those trying not to laugh struggled to keep straight faces. But beneath the humor was something else. Frustration. Because this wasn't about coffee. It wasn't about milk. And it wasn't about one rude comment. It was about a pattern. And more people were beginning to notice.
The whispers were getting louder, not because people were talking more, but because the stories were starting to sound the same.
As the weeks passed, projects were completed, meetings were held, and deadlines were met. But the tension around Kia never fully disappeared. Mr. Robertson, CEO of the Unity Bridges Foundation, decided to look beyond supervisor reports. He wanted to hear from the undergrad interns themselves, because leadership often reveals itself in how people treat those with less power. One by one, he called the interns into his office and asked the same question.
Which graduate intern has shown the strongest leadership skills?
The first said Haven's name without hesitation. Mr. Robertson looked up from his notes.
She respects people. She listens. She never makes you feel small just because you're an undergraduate intern.
Mr. Robertson made a note. The next intern was more cautious. She knew how highly he thought of Kia. Still, after a brief pause, she answered, Haven. Mr. Robertson looked up again. This time, he didn't write anything down. He didn't need to. A pattern was beginning to form. The next day brought a new group of interns. Mr. Robertson felt hopeful. Maybe yesterday's answers were an exception. Maybe today the tune would change. He asked the same question.
Which graduate intern has shown the strongest leadership skills?
Haven. No hesitation. Mr. Robertson paused. The intern leaned forward. Her jaw tightened. Sir, respectfully? She spoke through clenched teeth. I'd rather be led by Cruella de Vil. Mr. Robertson slowly lowered his pen. So much for a different tune. Later that afternoon, Miss Sarah stopped by his office. Miss Sarah had worked in community service for decades, the kind of woman who had seen enough life to recognize patterns before other people noticed them. After sharing the intern's stories, Mr. Robertson folded his arms. Miss Sarah looked over her glasses. Calm, measured, wise. One person may be a hater, two may be true, but a few, there's something worth looking into. She shook her head, no longer looking over her glasses, but looking him directly in his eyes. Mr. Robertson sat quietly, thinking. The office suddenly felt much quieter, because deep down, he knew she was right.
Sometimes the truth doesn't shout, it repeats itself.
Mr. Robertson couldn't shake Miss Sarah's words. If something was wrong, he needed more than opinions. He needed proof. So, he contacted his frat brother from the Neighborhood Impact Alliance. A plan was formed. And the key was Markel. What the interns didn't know was that Markel wasn't a peer. She was a board member placed undercover to observe the program's culture and leadership. Her youthful appearance made her easy to overlook, which meant people were their authentic selves around her. When Markel arrived, both Haven and Kia welcomed her. Kia offered a polished smile, shared her accomplishments, and made her position clear. Haven simply said, "Welcome to Unity Bridge Foundation. If you need anything, let me know." No speech, no performance, just kindness. Markel noticed the contrast immediately. As the summer project got underway, Markel spent hours researching community needs and developing recommendations. Then, during the presentation, Kia stood before the executives. As you can see, my outreach strategy will help us reach hundreds of new families. Markel froze. Her research, her ideas. Several interns exchanged glances. The executives noticed the shift in the room. Later that afternoon, frustration spilled over. Kia stormed into a conference room filled with interns. She tossed a folder onto the table. Papers scattered across the floor. The pictures that were collected at yesterday's outreach event are horrible. The room fell silent. Without saying a word, Haven knelt down and began gathering papers, one by one, page by page. She picked up one of the photographs and studied it carefully. "We can work with these," Haven said calmly. "It gives us an opportunity to try the new editing software." She glanced around the room. "Who has the digital file?" A young intern raised his hand.
I have it on my drive. Let me pull it up.
"Perfect," Haven replied. "Let's see what we can do." A few discouraged faces immediately brightened. Markel quietly observed from the corner of the room. Kia scoffed, "You're wasting your time." Then she turned and walked out, embarrassed by the scene she had caused, but too proud to admit it. Kia scattered papers and criticism. Haven gathered the papers and the team. One added to the problem, the other helped solve it. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore.
Moments like this don't just pass. They leave expressions that linger.
The final day of the internship had arrived. Executives, supervisors, and board members filled the conference room. Emotions were high. Decisions were coming. Kia had presented the day before, polished, confident, and prepared. She cited statistics and praised her own results, leaving her team's contributions unmentioned. Her presentation was impressive. No one could deny that. Today's was Haven's presentation. Her presentation was different, less focused on achievements, more focused on people. She spoke about partnerships, families, lessons learned, and the importance of serving communities with dignity. As she neared the end of her presentation, she paused. I'd also like to recognize a few people. Several heads lifted higher. Alyssa consistently stepped up whenever extra help was needed, and James worked countless hours organizing community data. The room applauded for both of them. Then Haven turned toward Markel and gave credit where it was due. Many of our outreach improvements began with Markel's ideas and persistence, but none of us did this alone. There were late nights, long meetings, and moments when we had to lean on one another to keep going. Her teammates were genuinely moved by her words. Across the room, Kia shifted in her seat. For once, the spotlight wasn't on accomplishments. It was on gratitude. And gratitude has a way of revealing character without saying a word.
Recognition has a unique power. How we receive it reveals our character. How we give it reveals our values.
When the presentation ended, Haven and Kia were asked to step outside. The door closed behind them. For a moment, no one said anything. Then an intern raised his hand.
Your favorite intern is more focused on being the most valuable player than being a team player.
Then another intern spoke, and another. Different stories, the same pattern. A few moments later, Haven and Kia were invited back into the room. Kia entered with her nose higher than a Georgia pine, probably already daydreaming about how she would decorate her office. Haven entered calmly, offering polite smiles. Whether she was hired or not, she knew she had made a difference while she was there. Mr. Robertson folded his hands.
Results are impressive, but we've also received concerns regarding your leadership and how you've treated others.
Kia's smile tightened. Well, she replied, it costs to be the boss. One of those costs is animosity from your subordinates. Surely you understand that being a CEO. A few eyebrows rose around the room. Mr. Robertson said nothing. Instead, he nodded toward Markel. Markel stood. Kia frowned. Who asked you to stand? Markel ignored her. I think it's time I told the truth, K-Rob. A few heads turned, wondering, who in the world is K-Rob? Team, I'm not an intern. I'm a board member, placed here to observe leadership, teamwork, and integrity. Gasps rippled through the room. Kia froze. And what I observed showed me leadership at its best and at its worst. Markel continued, praising Haven's humility, calm under pressure, and willingness to help others. What could have been discarded became one of our strongest campaign materials, she added, because she saw potential instead of problems. The room murmured with approval. Mr. Robertson stood and extended his hand.
The board would like to offer you the position of Community Engagement Coordinator.
Haven was stunned, but finally mustered. Thank you. The room erupted into applause. Mr. Robertson then turned toward Kia. The applause faded.
Your intelligence and drive are undeniable, but leadership requires more than talent. I've spoken with a colleague at the Neighborhood Impact Alliance. If you're willing to learn and grow, I'm prepared to write a recommendation on your behalf.
Kia looked up, more offended than grateful. Maya interrupted the moment. I don't get it. You just said her intelligence and drive are undeniable. So why would anything else matter more? Mr. Robertson struck the table for silence, but Maya continued. If you ask me, Kia's exactly the kind of leader I'd want. Kia glanced at her and thought, finally, someone in this building had some sense. Mr. Robertson held his ground.
And that's your opinion. But leadership isn't measured only by what you accomplish. It's also measured by how many people are willing to accomplish something with you, Kia. What is it going to be?
Silence settled over the room until even the ticking clock seemed loud. For the first time all summer, Kia had nothing to say, so she simply extended her hand and offered a limp handshake. accepting the offer. If you don't remember anything else, remember this. Self-control isn't just about controlling your temper. It's also about controlling your pride. Kia let pride control her. Haven let humility guide her. One pushed people away with criticism, control, and dishonesty. The other pulled people in with recognition, encouragement, and support. But this story wasn't only about self-control. It was also about self-awareness. Mr. Robertson was impressed by confidence, influenced by bravado, and unaware of his own favoritism. It took wise counsel to challenge what he believed and help him examine what he had overlooked. Because self-awareness begins when we stop defending what we saw and start questioning what we missed. As the elders would say, everybody can't be telling the same lie. When the same concern comes from different people, wisdom tells us to pay attention. Masterpieces. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever seen someone's character while everyone else was blinded by their charm?
I'm glad you stopped by and caught the vibe. Before you go, like, share, and subscribe. I'll save you a seat, same porch, same light, for the next front porch story night.